Welcome to Unholy Vibes. It's me, Alex, your host, the one and only. And today we're joined by another special guest, my buddy Trey. Trey, you and I met on a TikTok live.
Yes.
Yeah, we met on a TikTok live, and it was actually with someone else. I'm actually having them record with me this coming week as a guest as well. It was a great experience to go on there and hear a bunch of people's cool stories. I heard yours, the tail end of yours. I didn't get all of it, but what I did hear, I was like, okay, I got to message this guy. We got to get something going here. So, yeah, Trey, go ahead and introduce yourself and then go ahead and dive right into that story, man. Let's hear it.
All right. My name is Trey. I live in Richmond, Virginia. Never had a whole lot of stuff happen to me, as far as, kind of anything paranormal, but we ended up moving into a house. It was 2006 colonial style house. It had the white pillars out front and everything. And to go by the house, you would never drive by and say, that place must be haunted. It wasn't one of those houses. It was just like, a nice looking family oriented house. It was a big house, maybe 4,000 square feet. But moving in, family decided to go ahead and buy some of the furniture and some things that the previous owners were going to leave behind.
Okay.
Ended up that the lady and the man who lived there, her name was Linda, and I believe his name was Horace. He ended up building the house, and both of them ended up passing away there. Him first, and then I believe she passed away 2 or 3 years later. Wasn't a little bit later down the road that we found out that she ended up passing away and was at the bottom of the steps for like 2 weeks before anybody found her. That probably didn't
Oh,
help.
man. No
Um,
thanks.
yeah, exactly. We didn't know any of this at all whatsoever. It ended up there was, certain things would happen. It wasn't all the time. It was maybe something would fall, you would hear something from another room, and just it's an older house, it's just gonna settle. There would be some knocks, certain things that'll wake you up in the middle of the night, and you just wouldn't really think anything about it and just kinda roll over and just go back to sleep.
Right.
So, I guess the first experience that I had was more of like a night terror, and I've never had them before at all whatsoever, but it was just waking up, not being able to move, conscious, being able to see what's going on in the room, but not being able to move. And I could just sense that there was just somebody in the room with me. It was extremely terrifying at first, especially when you could see somebody coming out of a dark space and you can
Mhm.
see them walking towards you, and there's just nothing you can do about it. I had did a little bit of research and everything, and it was they had a hat on, and usually it's something that somebody sees, like an old style hat, draped kind of like a down parka, but no facial features, no physical features. You could just tell and you can see. And I woke up so fast and so quick that I was literally punching in midair, like
Dang.
towards me. Yes. I sat up so fast and so quick, and I don't know what had happened, but I even hurt my stomach, sitting up so fast and swinging that I strained something in my stomach. So that was the first experience, but it wasn't the last one of those. We had lived there for probably about 10 years. Nothing had happened all the time. It wasn't like an everyday thing. It'd be like,
Right.
maybe a month would go by without something happening. Maybe 2 months would go by without something happening. I was in my room and I was about to go to sleep, and I heard a female voice whisper in my ear, "Good night," just as I was about to pass out. And I was like, my eyes immediately popped up and was like, "Oh my God." And I went downstairs and I grabbed my dog, and I brought, he's a big red nosed pit bull, probably about 100 plus pounds. He's massive. And he didn't want to come into the room.
Oh.
So, yeah. So the next day I ended up going and saying something to my mother about it. And she's like, "Yeah." And then she started telling me her experiences. And I was like, "Oh, well, this may be something different." I've had been going to sleep and I snore. So I contributed it to maybe that of somebody being like, "Okay, go ahead and stop." But I woke up dead sleep out of the middle of the night, and it tasted like somebody sprayed perfume in my mouth. Like,
Oh,
just
really?
yeah, just perfume, just sprayed it right in my mouth, and I was like, "Oh my God." It was like if you went into a Macy's and they're spraying people down with perfume and some of it got into your nose and your mouth while you were
Yeah.
walking by. It was like that. It was undeniable that that's what that was.
The ghost of the Macy's perfume lady.
Yeah, but yeah, and it was really weird. I know, like, this woman was probably, like, in her 70s or something like that. I'm just so maybe she's just like, "Okay, we're trying to go to sleep, spray something in your mouth, you're snoring. It's too loud. Stop."
Your snoring was so bad that it
Yeah.
caused a haunting. It caused the spirits to be unrested. No resting in peace for them. No, that's funny. Sorry, I'm just being silly. So again, this is around the 2006-ish era. You're saying all of this is happening?
2006, 2007, maybe 2008. Again, I had, kinda one of those night terrors and everything where I had seen somebody in the room. This time, I was able to move. Not much, but slightly to where I could grab the remote control beside me and throw it at whatever is coming into the door beside me. The room that I had, if you walked in from the main hallway, it was a large room, and then there was a door in my room that led to a second bedroom. And whatever this thing was coming out of the second bedroom off to my left, maybe about 5 feet away from me, and its head was looking in at me. So I was able to pick up a remote. I was able to throw it at the door to maybe try to stop this thing or whatever it was going to do. You had that feeling that whatever this is was not good intentions. I woke up in the morning and surprisingly, I found the remote by the door with the batteries busted out, laying on the floor. So I don't know. Whatever I threw the remote while I was sleeping or was in whatever sleep that I was in.
Not
Unconsciously, I
not
have
kind of sleep paralysis, kind of not. I mean, because I hear a lot of sleep paralysis stories from people where they can't move. That's like the big thing. It's like you can't move, you're awake but not really awake, but you can open your eyes and you see things that aren't there. This sounds similar to that, but you being able to move, I mean, I'm not
yes.
saying that no one can move during that kind of experience, but yeah, that is creepy though. So, see, if it were me, I would have turned like the TV on or something to get some light real quick and then thrown the remote.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that is pretty creepy. Did
So
you
whenever trying to get this thing away from me because I
right.
knew something was coming at me, and my first reaction was, I feel something beside me. I'm about to throw it, and I threw the remote.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Fight or flight thing. You,
Yeah.
you you just do, right? Yeah, you just do. So these couple of experiences, your mom is also feeling some off vibes, is what it sounds like. What were some other things that were happening that maybe you two came together on and were like, this is more serious than maybe we originally thought? Were there any bigger events, or was it mostly things in the night, waking up in a sleep paralysis state?
So one of the things where we had realized that this was maybe something a little bit different was I had woke up one night, went out of the bedroom. We have a bathroom that sits up at the very top of the steps. It's one of those bathrooms that have it was like the 2 rooms. You have the one room where you have the mirror and you have the his and her sink, and then you have another, the door that opens up, and then it goes into the actual place that has, like, the toilet, and it has the shower head.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
well, when I had walked by it, there was somebody standing in there. And I knew because I could see the outline of them standing in there, and the light in the hallway cast inside, so you could see them. And I was about to go in there, but I saw some. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and I went downstairs. Well, it was about that time that I had remembered that nobody else is in that house but me. So I stopped what I was doing, went back up the steps to go turn on the light, and nobody was in there. So that's when I had realized, and I
yeah.
had said
No.
something to my mom about it, that she had experienced the same thing just the day before.
Oh, ugh. That gives me a little bit of the chills a little bit because the
Yeah.
worst part about those experiences, and not that I've had those experiences, but just from hearing them, is that you don't register right away what's happening. You're just like, "Oh, hey, sorry," right? Your immediate instinct, "Oh, someone's in the bathroom, sorry," right?
It
And you walk off, and then like 10 seconds later, you're like, "Hold on a second." No one should be in here. So it's one, an intruder, which is also terrifying, obviously. or two, it's some sort of spirit or ghost or entity or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other options, right? Maybe someone is home, but the fact that you're like, no, I was home alone, and you turn around, immediately went back, nothing's there. Did you find these kind of things happening more and more often as you were? The reason I ask that is because sometimes when people start to have experiences and they kind of engage, not that you were like intentionally engaging, but you went back to kind of check,
Yeah.
giving it that almost affirmation of like, ah, you saw me, you saw me. Did that
Yes.
start to kind of ramp up and happen more often, or where did this go?
So things started to pick up a little bit. Probably about 6 months later, this the biggest experience happened to me, and it also happened to my grandmother who was at the house. We were in the living room. We were watching Dancing with the Stars. It's her favorite TV show. I didn't want to watch it, but I was like, okay, I'll watch it with you. She's somebody to hang out with you. So started watching it, and I noticed that there was this something just did not match up with the TV. It was like an overlap,
Hmm.
but it was light. It wasn't very loud, but you can tell that it was there. So I asked her, I said, "Do you hear that?" And she goes, "No, I don't hear anything." I said, "Put it on mute." And she put it on mute. And to me and her surprise, you can hear a female carrying on a full conversation. And it was just like rambling. And it was in the air, but it sounded like it was right by your ear. And my grandmother goes, "Oh my God." And as soon as she said that, the dog started immediately barking.
Oh,
And we have 4 dogs, and every single one of them are going off the chain. And I'm like, "Well, what's going on?" So I thought that my brother had came back with his girlfriend. They had left and came back, but that's not the case because the windows in the house are those it's that type of tempered glass where you can't hear anything, the ambient from outside.
right.
So I opened the doors, I went outside, went out in the driveway, there was nobody there, came back in, walked around the house, there were no TVs were on or anything, it was just us downstairs in the living room, and I stopped and I looked off to my left, and outside where the light casts, light inside, you could see a shadow on the floorboards, and it was a long shadow, and it was of a person, and it was walking by the window. Only problem is you can still see outside. So there should be no shadow able to be cast inside from outside because nobody's any light. So why is
Right.
there a shadow on the floor? And it goes from the living room and it goes into the dining room and it goes into the den and it just disappears.
Ah. I That's creepy. I don't like that. So you
Yeah.
have this shadowy figure and you have a disembodied voice. That's crazy. That's crazy
Yeah.
that you picked up on that too, being like middle of a show, be like, hey, put it on mute for a second. And then it's confirmed. There is
Yeah.
another voice. There's something going on. And it wasn't like the radio playing in another room or something like that. It was just random rambling. But
It's random rambling. The best way I can describe it is, have you ever seen Charlie Brown where an adult's talking? It's like, "Wah, wah, 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 wah."
yeah, yeah.
It's like that. But
Oh,
you could hear you could hear the softness of it like a female was talking, you could hear it, and it was weird, it was, like, in your ear, almost like if they were standing next to you, but at the same time, it was in the air.
that is wild. Same house.
Yep, same house.
See, when you mentioned earlier that they had bought furniture from the previous owners and that kind of stuff, I don't do. I would not be me because in everyone else's experiences that I hear about, buying old furniture never turns out great. Furniture, for some reason, I've had a few other guests on the show as well that have talked about items that were left by previous tenants or owners or whatever. And I genuinely think there can be attachments to physical objects or something, right? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the science behind hauntings and ghosts, if you can call it that, but I hear enough stories to make me think that there's something to it because there's some overlap. And so when you say, "Oh yeah, they got furniture from the previous owners," that's an immediate red flag of nope, because you never know what kind of energies or whatever is tied to any of that. It's residue. It's residue, the way I look at it, right? Not saying that that was the thing. It could have been the land. It could have been the house. It could have been anything, right? But I don't see myself ever doing something like that just for my own paranoia of spooky stuff. So you continue on in that house. What else happens? Any other crazy events? I mean, that one was wild. That is very wild. If that's the peak, then that's the peak. That's fine. But any others that really stick out to you?
Yes, absolutely. So now it starts to pick up. My mother has now addressed this thing as Linda.
Mm, don't talk to
Has
it.
Yep, has talked to it, and now things start to pick up and it starts to happen more frequently. So when there are bumps, if there's stuff that does fall over, if, weird things happen, she's like, "We hear you, Linda, okay." Now she addresses it. Also, I guess it doesn't help that I don't know if you know anything about Virginia, but this house is in Mechanicsville and it's near Gainesville, which is a battlefield, like Civil War battlefield. So besides the stuff happening with the ghosts, you have other people sit there and talk about how, oh, the area's haunted also because of Civil War soldiers.
Right.
Uh,
I've
and
yeah.
it's only happened just one time. I never had any, like, crazy experiences of seeing, like, Civil War soldiers in the trees or whatever, but there was a night that, we had went outside, and it was a friend of mine. We were heading out to the car, and we heard this loud kaboom, and it was, like, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're like, "Well, we don't understand why this is going on." I mean, there was no light. It couldn't have been a gunshot. I know what those sound like. It couldn't have been a mortar from a firework. There was no light at all whatsoever. And the reason why I say that, someone's like, "Oh, well, it could have been off in the distance." No, this thing exploded midair and you can hear the gunpowder literally burning. Like, you could hear it sizzling in the air, and it sounded like it was cannon fire. I live by Fort Lee, and they shoot, stuff, artillery all the time, and I know what it sounds like, and that's exactly what it was. This was just one big loud burst of cannon fire that sounded like Civil War soldiers were still fighting, and this just happened randomly in the middle of the night, and it's never happened before.
That is crazy. See, I've heard other stories like that. So I lived in South Carolina for a while, and just being there, you hear it from people you get to know all throughout the South, obviously. But there it was a lot of, yeah, you'll hear things like not necessarily like that, but you'll hear things in the middle of the night or whatever where and it's funny that you say people in the trees because I've actually heard a couple other people talk about there being like Civil War, soldiers in the trees or whatever. And I'm like, what's that all about? But
There was a There was a video that I had seen, it was like Gettysburg, where someone had, like, did a recording, and it looks like there's Civil War soldiers, like, popping in and out of the trees and stuff like that, so I have never seen anything like that at all. So there's a big block of woods behind me, and there's even Civil War trenches back there.
right.
So I've never seen anything like that at all with Civil War soldiers, but I heard a cannon shot in
Yeah.
the middle of the night at
S
2, 3 o'clock in the morning for no reason.
yeah, spectral cannon fire. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Okay, so my biggest concern here, let's rewind a little bit. Your mother's addressing the ghost. What kind of turns does this all take? Do things escalate? Do you eventually get rid of this ghost? Do you just move out? Where does this all end up?
No, it started calling us by name.
It started talking to you?
So I'd never had the experience of it calling out my name while I was walking around or doing anything in the house. Mine was like mostly like before I went to sleep. My mother has had her name called out before too. So has my brothers. About this time, my girlfriend came over with the kids to the house. I'm actually not living there anymore now. So I would come over and, hang out on the weekends, or help around the house. My girlfriend would come with me. We had just had a child together and we stayed there. And I was asleep. I was in the bed and I heard somebody say, "Trey," while I'm asleep. And like in that REM kind of like, about to go to sleep, in and out type of thing. And I heard somebody say, "Trey." So as I go ahead and I roll over, she looks at me, she goes, "What was that?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she goes, "You didn't hear your name?" And I said, "Did you call my name?" And she goes, "No, I didn't." But she heard somebody call my name. I ignored it. If you heard it, I heard it. and I did hear it, but I just didn't wanna say anything.
Yeah.
So she knows that the house was haunted, and we try to tell her about it. You know, her 13-year-old daughter, we kinda joked around with her about it, and it was just one of those things that you just joked with that they just didn't believe. Well, now the
Yeah.
girlfriend believes me. She's like, "Oh my god, just don't tell my daughter. Just don't say anything to her about it."
Yeah. No
Yeah.
need to scare the kids, right? Dang. That's crazy because it's one of those things where you could almost write it off as, yeah, I was like half asleep and my brain was just making noise, right? It could have been
Yes.
this, could have been that, whatever. But for her to have been like, what was that? That is crazy. That is crazy. That's gotta feel kind of good though, because you were at least validated, right? Like, I'm not crazy. Which you
Somebody else experienced it. Sweet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So is your mom still in that home? Do they still own that place?
No, they ended up selling it. They sold the house, I wanna say maybe 2019, I
Okay.
believe, I wanna say. They sold it to an older couple. Guess what? They wanted the armoire, and they wanted a couple of things that my mother ended up buying from the previous owner, so it's still there, and, it's a
Uh,
curio cabinet, and it has the curved glass with the lion's feet and everything. It's definitely an antique. I'm not sure how old.
right.
It's definitely old enough. So, that's still there. When it's probably about maybe a year ago, I had just asked my mother about it, and she said that she actually ended up getting contact by the realtors who ended up selling the house. And they called her to ask her if they, left any equipment on underneath the house when it was sold. And my mom was like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And they wanted to know if she left any radios on underneath the house.
What?
Yes, because apparently they were hearing voices and stuff like that in the house also.
Done for. Though, dude, you y'all need to reach out to them and say, "It's actually haunted, no big deal, but just so you're aware." There needs to be a disclosure on any, like, closing documents, like, "May be haunted."
It's
Wow.
what's really great about that is 2 weeks ago, I went to that house, and the next door neighbor who I'm good friends with, he's a private investigator. He still lives next door with his wife. I went over there, knocked on the door, said hi to him, whatever. I ended up leaving, and I saw the couple come out of the house. Anyway, they've seen me once or twice before when they came by and looked at it before they had purchased the house.
Yeah.
And I said, how are you doing? And talking to them. And I asked them, I said, I had some questions, and I don't want it to be, you don't have to answer them or anything. It's just a couple quick questions for you.
Mm.
And I asked if there was anything strange or weird that had happened. And the guy had looked at me and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, we called about the radio and stuff." And he goes, "But I woke up one morning and it tasted like somebody sprayed something in my mouth." And my eyes got big, and I said, "Do you snore?" And his wife looks over, she goes, "Oh, yeah, he snores really loud." And I was like, "Oh, wow." They've had the same exact experiences, almost every single one of them. Somebody calling their name out, somebody at the top of the steps, hearing disembodied voices in the house. They have not seen anybody at all whatsoever, and, no apparitions or anything.
Mhm.
But, yeah, so it leads me to believe that this thing is calling their name out, and it's not so much as a residual haunting as it would be intelligent.
Right, that is did you tell them, like, "Hey, did you tell them what had happened to you, or did you say, 'Okay, cool, bye, good luck'?" Or like,
Yeah, we had like an hour-long conversation sitting there talking about experiences and certain things that had happened, and they've had almost every single experience that we've experienced.
wow, and so now they know. They genuinely do know that there's something there. There's something going on.
I had stopped over and said something to them because they said it was again, it's not all the time, but it's enough to where you can't ignore it.
Right. Wow, okay, so I don't think this is the case, but what if someone was, like, living in the crawl space or in the attic, or in the walls? Because I've had people on before where there was someone living in their attic and sneaking
Wow, that's
out when they were gone or when they were asleep,
yeah,
which is
that's his.
terrifying, terrifying. That is crazy, that is so crazy. So, the haunting continues. They're there, it just
Yep.
is. I mean, I wonder what they're gonna do about it. Are they just gonna live, suffer,
I,
or cleanse
it
the place?
hasn't.
What?
I guess it hasn't been anything that's caused anybody any harm. So I guess until something becomes benevolent and tries to attack somebody, I guess it'd be different. But
Yeah, yeah.
I guess they're just gonna have to live with 2 other people, I guess. Sometimes they just can't see.
Yeah. And so, more on your personal experiences outside of that home, has anything really happened to you or come up with, in where you're living at now? Do you think that it was isolated mainly to the home, or do you think that you have these experiences regardless?
But ever since I've left from there, I haven't had anything else happen to me, and it was just isolated to that one place.
Not a
I
bad thing, right?
I've never experienced anything like it before, and I haven't experienced anything afterwards. And I really wish that I had maybe done a ghost hunt, before we were selling it when we had all the furniture moved out. I wish that maybe I had done something. Maybe I'd have called the people who did that TV show, The Ghost Hunters, and be like, "Look, man,
Yeah.
y'all want a real haunted house, like legit?" I kind of regret that a little bit, but then again, I don't because I don't want something to be like, "Oh, he can absolutely hear us,"
Yeah.
and leaving. We don't want somebody to leave that knows that we're here, and then them come with me. I didn't want anything like that, so I just left it alone.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. I do not blame you. I wouldn't want that either. And it's like once you have a full understanding and acknowledgement of the presence, then it's like
Yeah.
this weird two-way street maybe. And they're like, hey, I see that you see me. I see you. And then yeah, it's like, what if they decide to follow you around? Who knows? Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds mostly like it was a previous owner, right? That had died and
Mhm.
was just there. They kept living in their house and they did not like snoring. They did not like snorers. Snoring, whatever, you get it. And it's really weird that they'd be like, you know what, spray perfume in their mouth. That'll get them to stop snoring. Like, where's that come from? Oh man. Well, dang. So Trey, that is insane. And it's probably for the best that y'all got out to and are in different places now, have a different kind of peace. You're not dealing with the constant thought of another presence there. So that's good. Any other good ones that come to mind while I got you here?
Nothing that I could really think of. Like I said, it was just that 10, 15 years of living in this house that we had other occupants that lived there.
Yeah.
And we didn't know it at the time, but we ended up knowing about it just before we left. And
Right.
I'm glad we did not with us.
And yeah, no, me too. Confirmed. The new owners, they're stuck with them. That's great. Well, Trey, I appreciate you coming on the show and making time. And I know we had kind of a weird schedule mishap. So I appreciate you staying up late and coming and joining me here on the Unholy Vibes podcast. Before I let you go, is there any social medias or anything you want people to check out or give a follow?
The only social media that I do have is TikTok, but I really don't have any social medias or anything like that to really put out. So
No, that's fine. I just figured I'd check. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you had a good time. It was awesome
I was
talking to you and hearing the stories. And if you ever find anything else out, if you're over there visiting again and you hear any updates from the new owners, let me know. Be sure to reach out to me because yeah, I'm invested now. If I ever go to Virginia, I'll hit that place up. So anyway, thank you again, and everyone listening. Be sure to share this episode with your friends, your family, anyone who you think would like a good spooky story. If you or anyone you know has a great story like Trey's, whether supernatural or not, something scary, something spooky, whether it's ghosts, demons, goblins, aliens, killers, stalkers, supernatural or not, I'll take it. I want to hear it. Be sure to reach out to me on TikTok or Instagram at Unholy Vibes Pod, or you can email unholyvibespod@gmail.com. I am in this for the love of the game. I love these stories. Thank you again, all of you, for listening. Remember to stay spooky, and we will see you next time.